Welcome to Pub and Porch, Applied Stoicism in Modern Life, hosted by Adam Piercy and Mick Mulroy. Okay, well, we are back. Mick, hello, how are you doing?
Great, Adam. Good to be back with you.
Yeah, it's great to be back here. I am very excited to be doing these for sure. So, today we were thinking about doing a little bit more of a conversational episode where we talk a little bit about daily practice, either for ourselves or sort of what we see as being common within the industry. When we were talking before this, I forgot to mention that I get a lot of people that tell me they're different styles of practice, and they sometimes ask me um, if this is a Stoic style of practice or not. And I'm always like, well, sure. I mean, in some ways, we always go with what Socrates said, which is merely to try, to just try to be better.
Yep.
So,
Any progress is good, right?
absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah. Why don't we start by hearing from yourself? Because I know you've also had some travel recently, and I'm sure that's an interesting time for anybody with a practice. So, so what are your sort of day to day things that you kind of take off with?
Well, like you mentioned, I do travel a lot. I mean, my group is involved in the humanitarian operations around the world. So I am on the road quite a bit in different time zones, and it makes routine difficult, but also more important to me. Um, and when it comes to the Stoic practice, I try to, of course, exercise and do all the stuff to keep you healthy. But at least from a philosophical point of view, I do the reflection and review type concept as much as I can. Like when I get up, what do I want to do today? Which is beyond just work, right? I mean, obviously, I have a checklist of things I have to do for work. Um, and then at the end of the day, I review. What did I do well, and what did I do not so well, and then after the review, it's like, what am I going to do different if I fell short? So, and I think that's one of the biggest factors of Stoicism isn't that we're all sages. In fact, I think most Stoics don't even think you can be a sage. It's more like a something um, you know try to be, you want to be, but you also realize the likelihood of becoming the perfect Stoic is slim to none. But the advancement, the progress, when there's so many quotes that comes out of famous Stoic philosophers about any progress is good, right? You're going in the right direction. So that's where I really focus my daily, and I try to read a lot. I think, I just read a stat somebody just sent me that only 17% of Americans read a book last year, like 1 7, one book. Um, Now, I, of course, do focus a lot of my reading on Stoicism because that's my life philosophy. But reading, like, and not scrolling or reading articles on your phone and all that doesn't count to me. You have to set goals, in my case, to reread a lot. I read a lot of the new stuff on Stoicism, whether it's, Ryan or Donald or many of the other folks, and maybe one day our book, if it ever gets published. Um, but I also reread, reread the old. I view it almost in a sense as scriptures. So I go and reread thoughts and then kind of dig into it either myself or with other folks that share this interest. So that's what I do, and I do journal. I have to admit, I can be pretty that can come and go just as I have time, quite frankly, to do so. But it's also part of the whole reflection and review, and that's where I really focus.
Yeah, I totally get that too. I mean, I am a journaler as well, but I think the way you describe it is a way that I think works well for people is the review and reflection is a great way to put that because a lot of people ask me, they're like, well, I don't journal every day, or they say, but I don't journal, but I think about my day every day or something like that. And I'm always like, well, I don't know that there's really a wrong answer there, right? As long as you are taking the time to reflect and review, to and I sorry, I might have gotten the R&R there wrong, but you know what I mean? Like I think that's actually a better way to put it. I don't think I'd heard it somebody say it that way yet, but I think that's the right interpretation of that because I do that as well. I'm a journaler. Not every day. I mess up on that every day. Because but my work is like yours. I do travel a bit, and it's also a really high-paced environment, which I know yours can be as well sometimes. So, and so you get to the point where you kind of you just gotta try. But what I do a lot of the time, I know that I do is, on the drive home from the office or on the drive to the office, you're taking that time to sort of reflect or not plan, but sort of think ahead about, for example, on my way to the office, I'm thinking, what am I going to try and accomplish today? Or what's my focus going to be today? There's a passage from Meditations where Marcus says, today you will meet difficult, challenging people. And I try to take that into account sometimes because we all have those people that push our buttons or provide stress. And if you plan ahead for that, right, I think that's a very stoic concept of like, okay, it's that premeditation of adversity that we talk about. Where you kind of go, I know today's going to be tough. I'm going into a big review meeting. I'm going into a big milestone meeting or something, whatever it is. You go, okay, so I'm going to try and just keep a cool head and whatever. Or at the end of the day, you're sort of driving home going, how did that go today? Am I happy with how that went today? What could I do better for tomorrow? So that's definitely a major practice for me. I should say as well that I also have a meditative practice which is very regular. It's every morning at my partner says the butt crack of dawn. She says because I it happens before the sun comes up, and she's always like, "What time are you getting up in the morning? Butt crack of dawn?" And I go, "Yeah," and she goes, "Okay, I'll see you." And she sort of says, "I'll see you after that."
Well, that's impressive. And but I would say, most people, if they start doing that, especially getting up early, get more done. I mean, I found that in my own life. You
For
know,
sure.
such like your grandma said, bad things happen after a certain time at night, and most good things, work, etc., happen early, right? So if you give yourself more early and less late, uh, you might be heading down the right path. But one thing I would say was hold yourself accountable. I heard you say, Adam. I
Yeah,
feel like that because part of, I obviously prefer people that are virtuous, but I really don't like people who are hypocritical. I'd almost rather somebody if they're just, a dirtbag, just to say they're a dirtbag. Not that I'm promoting being a dirtbag, but at least people are honest about it. At least I give them some credit. So I hold myself accountable to be, if I'm going to get on a podcast with you, every week and talk about stoicism and the cardinal virtues, and then I go out and I'm not holding up what I preach. Uh, I'm going to be pretty hard on myself, put it that way. I think it actually makes you want to be what you say you are. So part of it is kind of like throwing down a marker on what that you need to meet or shut up about it, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So yeah, a big fan of holding yourself accountable.
absolutely. And I think, um, well, I always remember this quote, which, as far as I know, it's Elvis Presley, but it might not be, where he said, "The truth is like the sun. You can hide from it as long as you like, but eventually it's going to come out." And I think, the accountability that you see with really strong Stoics or people who have that mental resilience is they will literally say to themselves, "Yeah, I made a mistake there," or they'll say, "Today I wasn't who I wanted to be or who I think I could be," and they ask themselves that question first, and then they answer honestly to themselves. Like there's a it's almost like there's a thread through all of Stoicism to me that is truth, right? What's the actual truth? You could say, oh well, I journal, but if you journal once every 6 months and you don't really think about it, like, are you being really true? Are you being honest with yourself? And I think the reflection that you're talking about, I think, coupled with that accountability, I think brings that truth into light. Because the people who I think see a lot of growth from practices like the ones you and I have, and that Stoics have in general, they have an innate honesty with themselves. You know. that I think comes out from the practice.
And when you read, I mean, you read meditations. I think one thing that's so stark about it is it's not just that he holds himself accountable in a way that many average people doesn't. Is he was not an average person, right? I mean, he was the emperor of Rome, and he could have done whatever he wanted, and essentially nothing would have been done to him about it. And a lot of his fellow emperors basically did that. You know, they did whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, and were pretty brutal about it. But Aurelius was he was hard on himself, you know, and I think that's what I think why he's used so often in history as uh, you know, in many ways the ideal leader, somebody who strove to be better for the sake of being better, even though it wasn't something that he was required to do as somebody with absolute power.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, he's an interesting character in himself as well because we never get the sense that he walked around saying, "I am a Stoic." But yet he is so much the embodiment of it, and so he kind of just was. You know what I mean? He wasn't a practice. It was like he wasn't a practicing Stoic. He was like a Stoic. You know what I mean? And I think that's a really interesting concept there. I get the sense that he and I might have had something in common, and if this is similar to your style as well, it'd be interesting to hear that. Like, I'm a team lead in what I do in my career, and I like to say the phrase that I lead from the back of the room, right? It's not my job to be up at the front there. It's my job to see what I could, and this is where the accountability is in there. It's my job to empower those around me to do their best and stuff like that. And I get the sense that he would be like that too. But he also never says that out loud. He sort of says, I'm just a guy and I'm just trying to do what's right. And it's like, oh, okay.
Well, you certainly don't get the idea he was a braggadocious guy. That would be counter to all the Stoic principles, right? The
Yeah.
humility.
Yeah.
But he also led, you know, at least the troops, you know, from a military general right at the front lines, right? A lot of emperors sat in Rome and, you know, drank wine and did whatever while the fight went on the frontier, whereas
Yeah.
Aurelius spent most of his time on the frontier with his troops, which is why he was so beloved by them and why he's so used as a model for military leaders, you know, up until now. Um,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm always intrigued by one part of practice though, because I would love to know. I'd love to have a time machine to find out the answer to one question. We were talking about it just before we started recording. One of my daily practices, which doesn't sound like a practice, it's more like a reminder, but is that I have some pieces of things on me at all times when I'm not, just lounging about the house. Not that I get to do that very often anymore, anyways. But so I carry a challenge coin. It's a challenge coin that says the obstacle is the way. It's one of the Ryan Holiday challenge coins. But I also carry an Aurelian coin. It was a coin with Marcus' head on it, that was given to me by a friend of mine who introduced me to Stoicon, and I carry those with me every day. But I also, on the chain around my neck, I wear a Hercules knot, or I don't like to call him Hercules because I was always trained to call him the Greek name, so I call him Heracles.
Yeah.
And I have a Heracles knot, which is just a reminder of the choice that Heracles made. Which I'm sure you know the story of the choice of Heracles by Prodicus, which is in Xenophon's. I'm not going to remember the name right now, but in Xenophon's writings about the conversations with Socrates, right?
Right.
I'm always curious, and we're never gonna know, right? But I'm always curious. Like, did Marcus ever have that? Did he wear a ring that reminded him of something? Did he have a tattoo? I don't know.
Well, they certainly wore a ring. I think that's the whole, you know, the emperor had the signet ring they used to
Yeah,
things. But well, tell me more about your challenge coin because you know I got a gazillion challenge coins because of the
yeah,
military.
yeah,
Where did you get one with Aurelius's image on
yeah. So, my friend, David, who people might know that name. I've interviewed him on a different podcast before. David found a set of Aurelian coins which had been unearthed in Austria, and they were on like eBay or Etsy or something like that, and he was able to find a couple from this coin. He was like a coin. This guy he ordered from was like a coin collector. But yeah, they were found in Austria, which was really interesting because my last time I was in Austria, I was with Donald Robertson. He and I were in Carnuntum at the Roman town there, doing some work for his book that was coming out at the time, How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. And so anyway, so I have an interesting connection to Austria with Stoicism right now. But yeah, David and I went to Stoicon, and after Stoicon, he wanted to get some sort of a memento for the two of us. So he has one, and I have one, and it's quite small, and but it does have Marcus' face on it, and it says his name or whichever. I can't remember what it says on the other side now. But the other problem, the challenge of this though too, was that the index card that came with it, with all the information on the coin, is in German. So I should probably get that translated actually. But yeah, so
Sure.
that was given to me. Now the thing is, it's very small. It's a very small coin. So in return, as a return gift for David and I ended up sewing two small leather pouches together. They're only a little bit bigger than the coin, but they're made out of this red leather that I had some extra over after making a belt a couple of years ago. And I have this, so I always have this little pouch with my Aurelian coin in it, with my challenge coin, my big chunky Ryan Holiday challenge coin.
Wow. All right. That's on my list of things to try to find a Aurelius coin. I could say that
Yeah,
I had uh, one of my uh, partners in the business that I refer to, General Mundy, retired Marine General.
yeah.
His wife, when they came to visit out here in Montana, they brought a gift. It was a 170-year-old copy of Meditations. Right? I was blown away. Yeah, it's just you just don't expect that. I mean, I always had tears in my eyes. I know it's not very stoic, but all the irony. But I was like, wow. So that's my most prized
Really.
stoic possession, and I've got it. I My wife put it in a box, and it's proudly above all my Irish whiskey down on the bar. Uh, yeah.
Now, one thing I would say though, Mick, because we were talking about this in our first few episodes, I think that we ever recorded. Um, I think tears in the eyes are totally stoic. I think there's a stories of I think it's from Fronto. It's his physician, I think, or teacher, where he talks about how Marcus was very emotional at the loss of a friend or at the loss of a teacher. Or I can't remember what it was. So I think but I think you make a great point too, though, that sometimes the practice means that we get emotional, and we're not robots, right? We're not meant to be robots. I don't think anybody would believe that, but yeah, I appreciate you sharing that story, though. That's really interesting. So this is a copy of Meditations from
Yes, it's done in
almost
London.
200 years
I
ago.
got I wrote on the back exactly the date because I knew it was going to be sealed, so it would be protected. But yes, it's proudly on the bar downstairs,
Oh wow, that's really cool.
top shelf, of course.
Yeah. So there's one last one which great to get your opinion on as we kind of wrap up with this. Um, because we're doing it right now. I think one interesting practice about our practice, or our like our Stoic philosophy in our lives, is I get the sense that you and I are similar in the sense we both try to talk to people about it. Now we're not on street corners like Marcus saves, right? Like we don't do that, but we certainly prioritize, I think, talking with other people, and I consider that part of the practice. I mean, from um, the perspective of the originating location of the Stoics with Zeno at the Stoa Poikile in Athens, it's a philosophy of the streets. It's meant to be talked about, is the way that I see it. So, but what's your take on that?
That's it. It's meant to be talked about. I mean, that's part of practicing it is talking about it. I mean, I try not to be, you know, the guy that just goes on and on about stoicism if the person I'm talking to really doesn't give a damn. So I try to read my audience. I don't want to be that guy on anything, to be frank. But if I can see this person's interest, I that's yes. I think part of it is to be a representative of it, right? Both in deep, but also talk. I mean, that's how it spreads. And like you said, it was not like Plato's Academy, which I'm part of Plato's Academy Center that Donald's running, and they are looking to escalate, or excuse me, excavate um, the academy, which is currently under a dog park in Athens. But
Yeah.
that was the place. I mean, that was a first academy, right? Whereas Zeno not only preached on the porch, but they walked around town together. It was more like a portable philosophy of the people, and I think it still is. And I think that's how it's best spread and how it's best practiced is just discussions, whether it's walking around town or jogging with people in a running club or having a pint at the pub. Um, that's how it's maybe those are things I just like to do, but whatever you like to do, just in normal everyday conversation, I guess is my point.
Yeah. And I think that resonates with me very deeply as well. I mean, look, we're having a podcast about it to talk about this stuff, so we're definitely, sharing it in our day to day.
That's true.
Well, I appreciate the insights and sharing your own practice concepts with me. I think I might want to talk about later, just as a quick idea. I might want to talking about later about when we use non-stoic practices in our day to day, which is something that I do. But yeah, so that's probably a good place for us to wrap up, though, to get the
Yeah,
conversation started. So I think this is one of those times where it would be good to say that if we are, if hopefully we get a chance to maybe hear from some listeners on what their day to day is like, or maybe they want to ask questions about how to get started or something like that. I certainly be
absolutely.
good to
That's what we
see those
want.
come in.
That's the point of the podcast is
Absolutely.
applied stoicism, and this is a group effort. And and if they happen to know where we can get a coin, I'd like to know that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have to ask David. So, but let's wrap up there. So, good chat, Mick. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you for listening to the Pup and Porch podcast. If you'd like to find out more about the podcast or its host, head over to pupandporch.com, and you can listen to all our episodes on Spotify, Apple, or whichever platform you prefer. And if you'd like to help out with the podcast, you can find us on Patreon. Drop us an email if you have a comment on any past episode, you have a suggestion for future episodes, or you have an essay on an important topic for Stoicism. Send it to us, and then we can be reached at info@pupandporch.com. Today's music was provided by bensound.com. Until next time, Pup and Porch out.